This tutorial is going to show you how to crochet junior mint scarf for beginners. So this is what the final scarf will look like. To crochet the scarf, you're going to need red yarn and you're going to need blue yarn. I recommend a dusty blue yarn like this one. Both of these are Loops and Threads yarn that I got at Michael's in Canada. This is Soft Classic acrylic in the color Cornflower, and the red is Impeccable acrylic in the color Claret. They're two different types of yarn because I couldn't find the colors that I needed in the same type, so that's okay. Both of these are medium weight 4 category yarns, so as long as you can find 2 color yarns that are in that same weight class, you should be good to go. In addition to yarn, you're going to need a crochet hook. This is a 5.5 millimeter crochet hook. You can find whatever crochet hook size is recommended on the back side of the yarn. This one is recommending a 5 millimeter. This one is recommending a 5.5, so I just went with the bigger one. You're also going to need a darning needle. It looks like this. I just have this plastic one here that's got a nice big loop that's able to fit yarn. And then you'll need a pair of scissors. The first thing that we're going to do is grab our red yarn and we're going to make a slip knot. So to do this, I take the tail of the yarn in my right hand and I just wrap it over the yarn that's attached to the ball like this to create an X. Then with my fingers, I just reach through that loop, I grab onto that tail piece of yarn, I hold on to it nice and tight, and then you can see a knot is starting to form. So I'm just going to pull, holding on tightly to both of those pieces of yarn until I've got this nice big loop. So that's our slip knot. I'm just going to pull a little bit on both ends of those yarn to make it a little bit smaller. This is what we're going to put our hook through. And then I'm just going to continue pulling on both ends of yarn just to make that loop smaller so it fits nicely on our hook like this. Perfect. So once you've got your slip knot, we're going to start doing some chain stitches. So to start off the scarf, we need to do 7 of them. And to do a chain stitch, all you're going to do is you're going to take that yarn that's attached to the ball, that's our working yarn. We're going to yarn over our crochet hook and pull it through the loop. So again, we're going to yarn over, grab that yarn with our crochet hook and pull it through the loop. So that's 2 chain stitches. So I'm just holding onto the tail end in my right hand just to keep things a little bit tight, to keep some tension. So we're going to do our 3rd chain stitch. So we're going to yarn over and pull through. That's 3, 4, 5, yarn over, pull through. That's 6, yarn over, pull through, that's 7. So you can see we've got a chain here, and so each chain stitch kind of looks like a little V. So it's got a top loop and a bottom loop, and there we've got 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 on our hook. So now we need to make some single crochet. So this is a bit of a different stitch. It's one of the most common and most frequently used stitches, especially if you're making stuffed animals, doing amigurumi. So this is going to be a really important stitch to learn and get really comfortable with. Our first single crochet needs to go into the 2nd chain from the hook. So the loop on the hook doesn't count. So this is the 1st chain from the hook. This is the 2nd one, and the tip of our crochet hook needs to go through the top part of that V in that chain stitch. 2nd chain, my crochet hook is going through just the top part of that 2nd chain from the hook. So it'll look like this now. Now to do our single crochet, we are going to yarn over, and we're going to pull that yarn just through the 1st loop on our hook. So now we've got 2 again, and then to finish off this stitch we are going to yarn over again, and this time we're going to pull that yarn through both of the loops on the hook. So that is our first single crochet stitch. We need to do 6 single crochets in every single row of this scarf. So this is our first one. We need to do 5 more. So once we have that first single crochet done, we're going to put 5 more single crochets into this row. So we are going to put a single crochet into every single chain that we made. So we should have 6 single crochets in the row. So I'm going to take the tip of my crochet hook and I'm going to put it through the top part of the V of the next chain in our scarf. So I'm putting it through. So I have 2 loops on my hook. I'm going to yarn over, pull that through the first loop on the hook. So now we've got 2 loops remaining. I'm going to yarn over again and pull that through both of the loops. So this is our second single crochet. I'm just going to keep doing this until I reach the end of the row and until I've got 6 single crochets in total. So here I've got my first row of the scarf and we've got 6 single crochets. And we can make sure that we've got 6. We can count just looking at the top little V's on here. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Perfect. So this is our first row. To start a new row, we need to chain 1. So again, that's taking our working yarn, yarn over our crochet hook and pull it through. And then we are going to take our project and we are going to flip it around to the other side. From there, we're going to do another 6 single crochets. So to do that now, we're going to take our hook and we are going to put it through so that it's like underneath that V that was formed by our single crochets. And we are going to do the exact same thing that we did before. We're going to take our yarn and yarn over and pull it through. So now we have 2 loops on our hook. We're going to yarn over again and pull it through both of those loops. So now we've got a single crochet. And we'll do the same thing. We're going to take our hook, put it through so that it's just sitting underneath that little V of the single crochets from the row before. We're going to yarn over, pull that yarn through, yarn over again, and pull it through the 2 loops on our hook. And we're just going to do that for a total of 6 times until we get to the end of the row. So here I've got 5 single crochets in the second row of red. We need to switch colors every 2 rows. So on that last stitch of your second row in whatever color you're working with, you're going to take your hook and you're going to begin doing your single crochet like normal. So you're going to put it through, you're going to yarn over, pull that yarn through. Now instead of yarn overing and pulling this through both loops on the hook to finish that stitch, this is where we now need to change color. So now we're going to grab the blue yarn in our left hand and we're going to take this yarn and we are going to put it over top of our hook. Now this can take a little bit of practice, especially if you're a beginner, to get this right because you're holding a lot of things and managing different yarns in both hands. So we're going to take our blue, we're going to put it over the hook, and with that left hand, I'm just going to grab all of those 3 pieces of yarn. With my hook, I'm going to take that blue yarn and I'm going to pull that blue yarn through those 2 red loops like this. So now we've finished our final single crochet, but we finished it with the blue yarn. So now our blue yarn is on the hook. So I'm going to take all of those 3 strands of yarns in my left hand and I'm going to just pull nice and tight so that our stitch looks just like the rest of the other ones. And so we're done with the red for now. So I'm actually just going to take my scissors and cut this. So I'm going to leave a little bit of yarn, a little bit of length of yarn. So I'm just going to cut that there. Okay, perfect. So this is what the project should look like now. I've just cut off that piece of red there. So now I'm going to chain 1 using the working yarn, which is our blue yarn now. So I'm going to chain 1 and then I'm going to turn this project around. What we're going to do is we are going to crochet over those 2 pieces. So we're working in the ends of the yarn as we go. Some people prefer to tie those 2 pieces of yarn together and then weave in the ends, but this is how I like to change my colors. So we've chained 1, now we're going to do some single crochets, similar to how we did it before. So we're gonna put our hook through our project, and this time we're gonna make sure that we're crocheting over those two end pieces. So when I yarn over with my working yarn, I'm gonna make sure that I'm yarn overing and that I'm catching those two pieces in the back. So we're gonna pull through our project, yarn over again, and pull through both of those loops. And so again, I'm going to put my crochet hook through. I'm going to make sure my hook is underneath those two end pieces of yarn that we want to crochet over. We're going to yarn over with our blue yarn, pull through, again, making sure that as we're yarn overing, our hook and our yarn is over top those two end pieces. And then we're going to finish off that stitch. So it looks like this. And you can see on the back, those two end pieces are being crocheted over as we go. So I'm just going to keep on doing this. So I put my hook through. I make sure my hook is underneath those two pieces of yarn. I'm yarn overing, pulling through, making sure my hook is over top those two pieces, yarn over, pull through. So you can see there's the little end of our red yarn. I think my blue piece of yarn is actually a little bit big, so I'm just going to cut it down a little bit more. And I'm going to keep on going until I reach the end of my row. And sometimes things like that happen, so it's okay. You can just pull everything out and try again. Okay, so there's our 6 single crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Again, to start a new row, we're going to chain 1, yarn over and pull through. We're going to turn our project to the other side, and we're going to do another 6 single crochets. And so this is essentially the pattern that you're going to follow and just continue to repeat over and over and over again to create your scarf for Junior Mint. There are a lot of stripes and a lot of rows that you need to crochet. For the scarf that I made for my Junior Mint, I had to do about 26 stripes of red and 25 stripes of blue. So in total, that's just over 100 rows that I had to do. So it takes quite a while, but if you're a beginner, this is really good practice because you're just going to be doing this over and over and over again. There's no better way to practice. Okay, so I've reached the end of my second row of blue. Now, I'm at the point where I need to change back to red. So you're also going to get a lot of practice doing color changes. So you can see, I'll just undo this here. In my last stitch, again, I'm putting my crochet hook through. I'm yarn overing, pulling that through. But once I get to this point, I'm not going to finish the stitch with blue. Right now, we need to finish the stitch with red. So I'm going to grab my red yarn again. I'm going to put it over my hook. Grab all of those end pieces with my left hand nice and tight, and I'm going to pull the red through to finish that single crochet stitch. So it looks a little loose right now. I'm just going to take everything and pull it nice and tight. And at this point, I'm actually just going to cut off the blue yarn because we're done with that. So I'll leave a nice little tail there. And then very carefully, holding on so everything is still nice and tight, I'm going to use my red working yarn to chain 1, turn the project over, and then now we're going to continue our single crochets in red. And again, like we did with the blue, we're going to take those end pieces of red and blue and we are going to crochet over them so that they are worked into our scarf. So I'm going to take my crochet hook, put it through the first single crochet hook from the row before. I'm going to yarn over with that red yarn, which is now our working yarn, pull it through, and continue doing single crochet stitches, making sure that we're working over those two end pieces. Okay, so just make sure, you can always go back to the other side of your project, the other side of your scarf, and just make sure those ends are being crocheted over. Okay, so we just have a few more single crochets to go here. I'm going to take that little piece of red there and just cut it a little bit smaller. Perfect, so there's our 6. Chain 1 and continue on. So again, this is going to be the pattern that repeats over and over and over again. And because I'm coming up to my second row of red now, again, this is where I would color change once more. Now, I'm going to pretend that we're finishing off the scarf. I'm not going to do the whole thing because it will take hours. So we're going to pretend that this is the end, and I'll show you how to fasten off the scarf. So imagine that this is your final row of red. We're going to finish our single crochet stitch. And then I just like to pull and leave a long piece of red yarn. So I'm going to cut this off from our ball now. And then I'm just going to take this yarn and I'm going to keep pulling through like this. And then from here, I like to take my needle, put through that yarn, and we're just going to make some knots. So I'm just going to take my needle, I'm going to find a nice little spot here, pull that yarn through to create a loop, put my needle through, and pull tightly just to create a bit of a knot. And I do this a couple of times. Maybe there's a right way to do this. This is just how I do it. Just to create a few knots like that. Cut off that yarn. So that's how I would end off the scarf. Okay, so that's just what I've done. And then we've also got this long piece from the first row that we did. So I'm just going to do the same thing. I'm just going to add a few extra knots just to feel like it's secure. Just pull nice and tight. You could also weave in that end a little bit if you really wanted to, but I just like to do a couple of knots and then cut that piece right off. Okay, so imagine this is nice and long. You've been crocheting for a while. You've gotten really good at single crochet stitches and at changing colors. You've got a nice long scarf like this. It's the length that you want. You've tested it and made sure it's the right size for your bear. You'll notice that there's this side of your scarf, and then there's a side on the back that looks a little bit different. So the side that looks like this is going to be our good side. This is the side that we want facing outward on our bear, and then this is the side that's going to be on the back. Now, on this side, you might see some little pieces of yarn sticking out. Those were those ends that we were crocheting over. To make your work a little bit tidier, I like to just take the back of my darning needle and kind of push those ends underneath the crochet stitches just to hide them a little bit more. Just to tuck them in and make sure everything looks nice and neat. So you can just go through and do that for your scarf. Just looking all along the back side and tucking in any pieces that you want to make sure that everything looks nice and neat. If there are any pieces that are sticking out on the front side, you can go ahead and do the same thing there. Okay, So once you've got your scarf, it's time to wrap it around your bear. All right, so here's the junior mint that I crocheted. He's all ready to go. He's got his sunglasses, he's got his infinity necklace, he's just missing the scarf. So I'm gonna take the scarf that I crocheted, and we're gonna make sure the nice side is facing out. We're gonna wrap this around him. So we're gonna make sure that this piece here, the piece from the front, it's gonna wrap around to the back, and we're gonna make sure it crosses over top. The other thing that I like to do is to make sure that that piece that will now fall towards the back is a little bit longer than the piece that sticks out in the front. So once you've got your scarf the way you like it, where the two pieces join, whatever stripe is in the middle there, you're going to take a piece of yarn in that color, and we're just going to put a few stitches to tie and hold both of those pieces of the scarf together. So mine's blue, so I'm going to take some blue yarn and my darning needle, and I'm just going to put a few stitches in. So flipping this over to the back of the piece, got my yarn and my needle. Just going to put this through, making sure it pops out in the blue stripe, pulling that through, and maybe just a little bit over, put my needle through again. And you can do a couple of stitches. I'm just going to do one for now. Now I've got both of those pieces of yarn. I'm just going to, both of those pieces of yarn there, I'm just going to tie a knot and then a little bow, so that way if I want to readjust the scarf later, I can. So just a little bow. I'm going to cut off any end pieces. And there we go. Now you've got a scarf for your junior mint.